something completely different. Today we're going to be talking about the 1996 C4 Corvette Collector Edition that I have. Wanted to put a quick video together because there's sporadic videos out there showing little bits and pieces of this F45 suspension and what it does and what it takes to delete it. So today I'm going to try and summarize deleting this F45 suspension on this particular model and replacing it with normal shock absorbers. So stay tuned and we'll get straight in. Hope it helps you anyway. That's the main reason for these videos. So on this model, as you can see down here, we've got this ride control. It's the F45 suspension set. It was a 1 year only, and you have a Tour, Sport and Performance. This was made by Delphi on this particular model, and it was not put anywhere else. It wasn't used. It was deleted and redesigned for the C5 Corvette from 97 on, and then various iterations. It was considered an upgrade in this particular model, but they're not very good, and you cannot get the suspension units anymore. The shock absorbers, they don't make them, so it was a 1 year only. They don't make them. Let's pull this shock absorber out of here. It's relatively easy. As you can see, I've already got it. Little word of advice: when you take these shock absorbers out, this spring is going to unload and push this A-arm all the way down. So put a trolley jack underneath and then put an axle stand underneath. If you don't put the axle stand, what's going to happen is it's going to depress all the way down and it's going to bottom out, and it's going to put the top A-arm jam against this wire and this adapter, this connector in here. So just to prevent that doing that, put an axle stand underneath it, stop the spring relieving all the way down. So here is my nice new Bilstein B6 shocks. Comes with top mount rubbers. This is the rear shock. Can't say I'm too keen on the blue, but hey, such is life. Here's another rear shock. As you can see from everything on this bench, I'm doing a few other things. The power steering pump's being replaced. The pulleys are being replaced. Tensioner pulley and idler pulley is being replaced. And here is one of the front shocks. We don't read the instructions just yet. Just new rubbers. No, keep the hardware for the bottom because you don't get new lower hardware. You've got a bump stop in here. You've got a cover, metal cover for the front. They were plastic, and plastic covers for the rear. Let's go ahead and install one of these shock absorbers. A little tidbit to note. On the original shock absorbers, the bushings had a metal insert, a metal sleeve inside the bush. So when you clamped down the top nut on the shock absorber, you clamped it down until it bottomed out on the metal bush. Well, Bilstein doesn't have metal bushes in it. It just has two rubbers. So you've got to be careful how much you tighten this down, and it's time to read the instructions on this one. So the tip is, on this type of shock absorber, it said it's a type 3. So the instructions say for type 3, type 3, type 4 there, you need to tighten that nut down so it pre-tensions or puts the amount of the correct compression on the rubbers, 24 mil. Can you see that? So we'll put this in and I'll show you what it looks like. But it was just something that I didn't realize when I put this on. There was no metal sleeve inside here. So, just something to look out for. Perfect. Right, so as I said, also, as mentioned earlier, these bushings, one's convex, one's concave. The convex one goes on top. I wouldn't have thought it makes a lot of difference, but nevertheless, that's what the instructions say do. So, as I'm one for following the instructions, not. For once, I think I'll do it. Here's the two 5/16 bolts that are going back in the bottom, and you will need a long reach socket because these nuts go underneath. You may get away with it with a short reach socket. I just happen to have a long reach socket in my hand. So how's that? I think it'll be much easier. The other bit here is you need to keep, you can't tighten this up until you've got the weight on the wheels so it preloads those rubbers correctly. What we're going to do is simulate that by jacking the axle up. Okay, so it's 20 to 30 foot-pounds for a grade 8 5/16 bolt. Cack-handed, I suppose. It's always wonderful doing things bass backwards. Okay, now for this top one. You need an Allen wrench that goes on the top here. And in this case, 17mm nuts on top of this. So this goes down to 24mm. There we go. And that's supposed to preload those rubbers. And then take the weight back off the arm and the vehicle. There you have it. Now onto the back ones. Okay, trying to get this bottom 13/16 off. Crash. These top fixings are quite long. Yeah, that's, see this moving up and down like that? It's pretty useless. What a pain in the bottom. There we go. So I wanted to take that out while it's connected to the shock so I could change that on the bench and not have to faff around trying to get that onto this stud in the vehicle. Okay, one little tidbit. When you're ready to put these shock absorbers on, this shock absorber dust cover comes with a plastic retention clip. Its sole purpose is to hold this on during transit. Take that out before you start assembling all the rubber bushes back in. You don't want the plastic in this joint because the plastic will wear out and the joint will come loose. So take that off and then assemble your washers, your bushes, the bracket that holds it to the body, and the nut. And as I say, this particular assembly, 24mm, which gives you the preload on the bushings. Let's get it put back in. Okay, putting this shock absorber back in is just the reverse operation of what you've done to take it out. I use a trolley jack just to take this up to get it out and then align it, take the weight off of it so it goes in easy. Just get these bolts started. This should ride 10 times better. Those old shock absorbers were totally shot. So to wrap this video up, we're going to deal with the wiring. We've got the original, we got the replacement Bilstein shock in here. The original one had a wire with a valve on the bottom of the shock for the selective damping. The wire came up and went to that connector with the yellow seal around it. The connector directly below it comes back to the ride height sensor. Now, what I'm going to do is I bought online caps, the Delphi caps, which is here, and I've sealed the end of the cap with RTV. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that cap onto that unit. Here's a cap just clipped onto the existing wiring connector, and what I'm going to do, I'm just going to tie strap that back. I'm not going to disconnect the ride height sensor connector. I'm going to leave that there, and I'm going to do the same for the opposite wheel and both rear wheels. This is the rear wheel. The rear shock absorber used to come up and connect to the connector you see there with the yellow seal around it. I'm going to put the delete cap on there to protect the wiring and make sure there's no water going in it. There's a wiring with the end blanking connector put on. I'm now going to locate that. You can see that where it sits in that little piece of grey plastic, that's the clip that connector seats onto. And there's a connector seated in its location, so that's how it's going to remain. So this is the central warning light panel where you get the active ride control warning light come up if you have a defect in the system. When you key on, it'll automatically run the system, and where the ABS active light, the one to the right of it, is where the ride control system light is when it comes on and off. I've pulled the fuse to the system and I'll show you where that is. That means I'm not going to get that warning light coming on, and I shouldn't get any codes set. So that's my solution rather than buying $300 worth of blanking caps. There's another solution that you can get. You can go to the GM dealership. If they've still got the GM Tech 2 tool, you can go into the OBD2, which was on this particular model, and you can disable this ride control system. Behind the driver's seat, you have this piece of carpet, which when you lift up, there's a panel underneath it. If you lift this panel up, and there is a 8mm screw I took out of this, there's a cover in here. Okay, so once you lift that panel up behind the driver's seat, you'll see a fuse down here. A fuse holder with a 20 amp fuse in it. This fuse is for the F45 Ride Control system. If you pull this fuse out, like such, put everything back together, you got a little bit of sound insulation panel that goes in there. Screw your panel back down, put the carpet back down, put the fuse in a safe place, and voila, you are done. So the reason I put this video together is to put all the little pieces of this F45 system together in the hope that you might get some benefit from it. Changing the shocks, the new adjustments you need for the rubbers on top of the Bilstein shocks, because the old rubbers, or the new rubbers I should say, don't have the metal sleeves in, so you don't have to torque it down. On the old ones it used to be 19 foot-pounds. On the new ones you don't. You take it down to a set distance, that's at 24mm. That pre-tensions the rubbers. So be wary of that. The other reason is the delete caps. I don't think personally you need to have or spend out $200 to $300 for 8 delete caps, which is not necessary. My belief is you can go, I spent $4 plus $9 for shipping for those Delphi caps, the blanking caps, filled it with silicone, RTV, and use that to protect the harness and clip the harness back in place where it goes. And then I'm going to pull the fuse to the system, which disables the system basically. And I'm going to see how that goes. So let me know what you think and what you've found in the past. And comment if I've got anything wrong. Always interested to learn. And especially to see what other guys are doing. As I say, there's so many little bits of videos out there about changing shocks, delete caps, but they're sporadic, they're one-offs. So I just wanted to do everything all in one go. So anyway, take care, catch you later.